Hi. So just to get right into it, this is gonna be a deep look into the spaceship demo on HDRP, a discussion about HDRP and the benefits of using it, I suppose, the performance of the sample, the spaceship demo, uh, how to make it faster, and also taking a look at the dynamic resolution, and a slight a look into HDRP in general. So if you don't know anything about HDRP or you're just starting, this could be helpful for you because I will discuss some beginner stuff, I suppose you can say, or I'll give you a look into how things work. Because when you're first starting in HDRP, it can be pretty complicated. Um, there's a lot of settings, and sometimes enabling one thing doesn't make it work. You have to enable it in one place and in another menu, and one of them overrides the other, and it can be a bit daunting. But once you actually get into it, it's pretty simple. Um, or I guess once you get used to the setting overload, like a lot of settings. But this is gonna be a long video, so there's no editing or anything like that. So you probably you need to have some time, or just run it 2x. All right, so let's get right into it. First, let's discuss this demo. I will be playing it at the end, so if you would just want to see someone playing it now and you never saw that, just look it up on YouTube, or just wait for the end for me to do it. This sample uses a lot of, well, everything really, but especially VFX, because this is sort of what it's about. Let me just disable that. But it uses volumetric stuff, lighting and fog. It uses a good amount of decals. Um, it uses fog in general, and a lot of real-time point lights, or just real-time lights in general, spotlight, point lights, baked lights. There's actually a good amount of baked light in the demo, and I have to say it looks really nice. It looks very very nice. It uses obviously a good amount of post processing because who wouldn't? It's fucking beautiful. If you disable, you can completely different look. I mean, actually, some of them are probably enabled in the default settings, so it looks a bit weird. But anyways, it actually uses a fixed exposure. I did not expect that, but I suppose it makes sense, because handling exposure can be a bit annoying sometimes. But also maybe they just want, from an artistic perspective, they just want a single, exposure setting. Anyways, it uses, obviously bloom, all this stuff. There's also another volume called render settings. And yeah, the ambient occlusion just makes such a fucking difference. Look at this. God damn. So contact shadows. I mean, I actually don't notice a lot when it comes to contact shadows. It could be just a scene. It's just not. Anyways, the performance is surprisingly really good, really really good. But it's actually fairly small in scope if you think about it. It's an interior scene. It's there's not a lot of going on. Um, it is very beautiful, amazing, and the volumetrics and all that look beautiful, very beautiful. But it is fairly small in scope. It's not like an open scene or like a ton of things to render, or an open world and like that. Which I think would be a struggle for HDRP. It's very doable, and it's actually what I'm interested in mostly. But that's when you have to fight performance stuff and the CPU especially. But anyways, they're making progress though. 2021 is looking really good. All right. Let's get into I mean, the settings, I suppose. Let's look at the settings. Actually, let me just show you some emissive stuff. If you look here, they're using the point lights here and the emissive material, give it a really nice look, and they're using actually a lot of real time light in this demo. I think this one is also the point light is baked, but the spotlight is real time. Yeah. So let's look at the settings. Like I said, the performance is very good. I can just show you actually. When you open the scenes, there's actually a tutorial in sample itself, so you'll get a pretty good understanding of it. You don't need to see any tutorial or anything like that. But you can also just go to the scenes and open the spaceship, and that's it. Or go to the main menu if you want to set some things up. You also need to disable VSync, otherwise you won't get accurate FPS benchmarks, something like that. But yeah, I'll just show you the performance. I won't play it, I'll just show you the performance. Yeah. I mean, the performance is just on this, view, like frustum view, so it's not exactly accurate. But look, and this is in the editor. There's a lot of overhead. It's pretty good, to be honest. If we go to the profiler, you'll actually see that the bottleneck is actually the GPU. So yeah, let me just do this. So you see the CPU is 12, but it's actually not. The editor is taking a large amount, and the like, look here, it's most of it is just overhead from the editor, and the GPU is well, obviously most of the work on the GPU is the G buffers, and post processing is actually a bit expensive, and obviously the volumetric light stuff. If you just take a look here, I should probably make this bigger. My bad. So the lighting, obviously that's pretty big. The post processing, the volumetrics, and motion blur. Surprisingly, it's I noticed it's very expensive in HDRP. I'm not actually sure if it's generally an expensive thing to enable, from an algo perspective. I don't exactly know much about it, but it's pretty expensive, at least in HDRP. Thankfully, most people don't like it, so you can just disable it. But yeah, after that, it's the tempo anti-aliasing, which is pretty good. It's they've really improved it a lot in HDRP from past tutorials, from past versions. My bad. The bloom, which is a must, in my opinion, and a bunch of other things. So that's the performance. It's pretty good, and actually you can go to the camera here. You can camera, camera, benchmark camera. Oops. It's because I didn't open it. Or I'm not actually sure where it is. I think I actually might have to get into the game. Oh yeah, I have to, because they're using Cinema Machine, and like you have to get into the game and then search for camera, and then you'll find it. There's a virtual camera, and then there's the camera that virtual camera is based on. So then you need to activate the dynamic resolution in the camera, and then you go to the setting here in HDRP render pipeline, and you look for rendering, which is here, and then enable dynamic resolution. In 2020 LTS, there's only a few, but all of them are bad except contrast, adaptive, sharpen. These three are very typical, upscalers or filters, and they're not really that good. They're cheap, very cheap, but they're pretty blurry and pretty bad. Catmull is probably the best of these two. It's not good, but it's better than these two. These two are very old, or just really not good in general. Contrast adaptive sharpen is actually from AMD, and it's pretty good. You might even just enable it just for the sake of sharpening the image. It's actually really good, even if you have like the same. If you're not changing the screen percentage. Just for that sharpen, because to help with tempo anti-aliasing. But you can reduce this to something like 75, and it's on 1080p. I mean, you shouldn't really do this in 1080p, but you can, and it's actually pretty hard to tell the difference if you don't know about it. And it can give major improvement to the GPU. I mean, for example, right now the GPU averaging 12 milliseconds. It can go down to 8 to 9 milliseconds on 1080p, not even 4K, 1080p. And this is in the editor, so It's pretty crazy. And you have like the entire budget to just add a bunch of other stuff if you want, or increase the quality or whatever. Um, but yeah, dynamic resolution is awesome. There's actually a lot coming with 2021.2. As of this video date, it's not out yet. It's still in beta. But there's tempo upsampling coming in 2021.2, along with TAA or tempo anti-aliasing improvements in general. So that's gonna be huge. There's also fidelity super resolution coming within the same version, which is gonna be awesome. And using it is extremely simple in HDRP. I love the workflow of HDRP. It's extremely simple. Once you get an understanding of the settings, because at the start it can be really complicated and you're like, why are there so many settings? It can be annoying. I remember how I felt, but once you actually get used to it, it's beautiful. I've used other engines and I just love this workflow. You literally just go here, and we're talking about like a forced screen percentage. You can do it in code. It's very simple too. You can just PM me or leave a comment if you're interested in knowing that, or just search Google. But yeah, you can just go here, enable it in the camera, obviously, enable it here, and force screen percentage, and then just set a number and choose any upscale filter you want. Also with the 2021.2, you can also choose the upscale filter that you want through code. So that's gonna be awesome. So you can choose the min and max value, and you can also choose or a screen percentage value, and then you can also choose the upscale filter. It's gonna be awesome. I believe actually bilinear and Lanczos, I think, is getting removed in the new version coming 2021.2, because they're very obsolete really, and I mean there's no reason to use them. It's just, you might as well just use Catamount. Like, it's just if you want something very cheap and blurry. But dynamic resolution is the most useful when you're doing 4K. It is amazing when you're doing 4K or ray tracing. There's obviously also DLSS, but I don't have an RTX card. It's awesome. I love dynamic resolution. So moving on. In terms of settings, really, it's all here. Things might look a little bit different in 2021, but and this is the 2020 LTS. But for the most part, it's about the same. This is running on deferred. Enabling features on HDRP is done through, I believe, the default settings, or actually you can go to your asset here under quality. Usually there's multiple, and you're running on a specific asset based on quality here, or you just do it yourself. But anyways, in this sample though, they only left you with one, which is good, because people don't get confused. They just click on the one, and this is, you enable and disable features. For example, if I go to decals and click this, decals are just disabled. That's it. Decals are not, even if there are decals in the scene, they're not going to be enabled, period. For example, these things are decals. Let's just go and disable it, and they're gone, just like that. Obviously this helps a lot with performance. Even the rendering of all that stuff is gone. Maybe even the pass is gone. It helps even when you're not actually using something. Disabling the features here actually helps. So that there's that. The performance, I mean. Dynamic resolution, obviously. Let me just run this to 100. Wait, was I running it at 75 when I played the game? Huh. I don't remember. Anyways, so there's lighting as well. So you just need to get used to the settings. It might take you a few days, but it will not take you a long time. Just a few days, all you need of semi-heavy use of Unity. Just explore the sample, explore the Walking Dead sample, explore your own samples, just build the terrain, drop a few textures. Use Map Magic. It's a great asset, free, the main asset at least, and just mess around. with features, volumetric lighting and fog and enabling and disabling settings, and you'll get used to it. You'll get used to where the settings are and what to do and how to open it and how to manipulate it, and it can be pretty good. So yeah, it's the same case with all the stuff here. Yeah. All right. Let's see what to talk about now. Obviously, the anti-aliasing. Let me just disable gizmos. God, pisses me off. So, I love the volumetric lighting. It really just it adds a very dramatic look into the or feel into the lighting, especially real-time lighting. It really makes up for the like real-time lighting without volumetrics is it's obvious that it's real-time, but when you use volumetrics, it can actually really make you think that there's more to it. It's amazing. I actually wanted to talk about interior scenes in HDRP. This is something I looked into for a while, and I've noticed that if you just go to render settings, you notice here the visual environment is set to gradient sky. Usually, I go with physically based sky. It's beautiful, procedural, as in like you don't need a texture or anything like that. And it gives a nice look. But the problem with the procedural sky is actually that the ambient lighting from the sky itself cannot be controlled. It will get into buildings, enclosed buildings, interiors. So you can notice what they did in this demo actually. They have a gradient sky and the top, middle, and bottom is set to black. In other words, there will be no lighting inside buildings. Nothing, literally nothing. For example, if I disable this and disable this, you notice there's no difference in the lighting inside. If it was a physically based sky, there will be a difference because the light seeps in no matter what. The way to work around that, at least in the 2020 LTS version and probably the 2021 LTS, I don't think that they're doing anything to fix that. I mean, I'm not sure you can even call it a problem, but it's annoying. I wish we didn't have to work around that. It makes sense because it's just how lighting works, real-time lighting, but for the physical best sky, but still, it can be painful. As you either use baked lighting, which I do not want, because imagine using a big scene. It's just not really a choice. I also tried the layers, but it didn't help because you can't really change the layers of the ambient lighting from the sky. You just can't do much about it. The way to work around that is actually setting a volume. Like, what the hell? Oh, my bad. My eye. Sorry about that. Like the green ones here, you see. So you set a volume and you add an environment override and set it to gradient all black, just like they did. And set that volume, set it around your interior. And then when the user enters your interior, it will be correct. The only problem is that when they enter the volume, the lighting will just switch to black, just like that. It will not look smooth. One way I thought of to fix this is to just you have to like build your levels like a door, make it a little bit long or something like that, and set multiple volumes, each like 3, for example, each with a slightly lower exposure count that blends between the outdoor environment and the interior darker environment. And so when you're in the third volume, moving into the interior, the switch from lighting to a gradient all black and only interior lighting is not as dramatic. So that's one way to do it. But yeah, so you can just take a look around the demo. It's a very beautiful demo. Very fast, and I'm running on, I forgot to say this, I should have said it earlier, but I'm running on a GTX 1060 laptop version, and around the same CPU, i7. It's nothing crazy, it's on a laptop, a few years old, and performance is still really good. So for interior scenes at least, HDRP is perfect. Alright, okay. Hopefully I will test this in 2021.2 or 3, and see how the performance is. Compare it to 2020 LTS. But I imagine when I upgrade it, there are gonna be a lot of errors, probably. So we'll see how that goes. If I take the time to fix it, maybe. But anyways, yeah, the anti-aliasing is set to temporal, and you set that through the camera, which I can't look into right now. I have to start the game. But it's very simple. You just set it through the camera. Yeah, HDRP is quite powerful. It really is now is in a proper state. The documentation for the features, at least. I'm not gonna talk about the API because I haven't really extensively looked into it, so it's not fair. But for the features, it's pretty good. I noticed that the developers, the team at HDRP at least, really takes measures, to change log and leave documentation for any new features, before the feature is out. So that's really great. It's a part of the process of releasing a feature. For example, if they add a new anti-aliasing to Unity HDRP, they make sure that documentation goes along with it. Not later, which usually jumps to never, or someday. So it's really great, and that's the way it should be. It's the same with for example, if you look at the 2021.2 when it's released, and you look for the dynamic resolution documentation, I believe it's in the asset documentation because it's a part of the asset. You will see each filter, like temporal upsampling, bilinear, fidelity, super resolution. You will see them mentioned, and a few lines about them. How good they are, what they do, or what they are, and that's really great. So yeah, the feature documentation is really good in HDRP. I like it. I mean, really, yeah, that's not much to say. The post-processing, I was actually surprised. I thought there would be more, but it's pretty beautiful. Bloom is amazing. They really adds a look to the sample. For example, if you go here, look, turn it off to 0. See that? The reason I'm not disabling is because I believe there's a bloom in the default settings, and I didn't disable it. So when I disable this one, and this is something you need to notice, because it's a part of HTTP. When you disable this one, what happens is the bloom setting in the default settings takes charge and becomes the setting. And so you notice that there's still bloom. It's just, not this bloom. This is like an override, which is, so you don't have to think about the default settings. Or you can just go to edit project and the default settings and just disable the post-processing. So you just do it in the hierarchy. And you can just, yeah. But yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah. Let me see. Motion blur expensive. There's actually a benchmark if you guys wanna play that. If you have the sample, you can open the main menu scene and click on benchmark, and it'll play the game for you. It's like a timeline, I believe, or whatever it is, and you can just see the stats page for the performance. It's pretty great. Actually, should I? You know what? Yeah, why not? All right, let's play the game. All right, I'm disabling. Well, all right, I'll just enable it. Let me just reduce that stuff for you guys.
Can you hear me? I hope you made it safely down there, and I hope you can hear me. I can't hear anything. The whole system's busted. There you are. I see you.
Security check in progress.
Good to see you're well.
Access granted.
Yeah, the VFX is pretty great. And if you're interested in VFX or whatever, you can look at the VFX stuff in this sample. It's
There's a secure shell terminal there, just where you are.
Great learning.
Put in the coordinates and get us. Hurry up and get us to the landing site.
You can see the volumetric lighting. It's beautiful.
Select landing target.
There it is. Hurry up, we don't have much time.
You can see the enemy ship VFX here. The
Hurry up.
planes, jets,
You have to get us out of here now.
ships. They look really great.
Landing target located.
It's gonna show up soon enough.
Attention.
There it is.
Multiple weapon signatures detected.
Do you? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's great.
I'm sorry, Baker.
Shield taking damage. Power down to 32%. Substantial damage to shield. Power down to 17%. Shield power down to 9%. Core energy depleted.
My voice died.
Shield has been deactivated. Immediate evacuation. Proceed to the tenders.
Alright, I'm running this on a 1080p, by the way. If I ran it in 4K and just, you know, put the dynamic resolution on 60 or something, it would be pretty great. It would still be really good, and it actually would look better than the 1080p. And this is even just using a contrast adaptive sharpen. You know, it would look much greater on temporal upsampling or fidelity super resolution, but it's not available in 2020 LTS. Alright, that's the demo. I actually want to talk about one thing, which is the scene setup in this sample. I've noticed that they use multiple scenes. You can actually see it here if I just turn all these. Alright, so this is the FX scene. I think that stands for VFX. GR, which I think stands for geometry. Yep. So this is a scene, this is a scene. LD, honestly I'm not sure what that stands for, but yeah, that's a scene. Lighting, that's a scene. SD, that's a scene. And this is the equivalent of this stuff, but the wrecked version. You know, the one that comes at the end when the ship is messed up. Wrecked VFX, wrecked GR, wrecked LD, all that stuff. And they actually use, I think, asynchronous scene loading. I think you can actually, if you're playing the game, you can see it. I think loading the scenes as you play. Like when the ship is being attacked, it starts loading the wrecked version, and then teleports you to because it teleports you to the wrecked version, and then unloads this one because you don't really need it anymore. It's pretty great. If you're interested in using HDRP, I advise you to do so. It's a really great system. A render pipeline. It's you know, a lot of nice features come built in, which is great. I've always wanted to do high fidelity features, and using the Unity workflow, which I just really love. It's my favorite from all engines. You know, the equivalent is, or not the equivalent, the alternatives are built-in and URB, or universal render pipeline. Built-in is great, you know, battle tested. There's a lot of games using it. But unfortunately, it is now on life support. You really should not use it for new features. Maybe the only exception is if you have, you know, a ton of experience and things set up for it, or a game already running it deep in production. You know, if you just start or whatever, you can just switch. Or if there's a problem with switching. But honestly, otherwise, I really think you should switch. I mean, it has been semi-abandoned in terms of new features completely and improvements for a long time now. Built-in, probably the equivalent is actually URP, or the successor is URP, Universal RP. But I've noticed that and this is not, you know, taking a hit at anyone or anything like that, but the HDRP team is a lot more active, a lot more features, you know, a lot more work done in GitHub, and you know, URP is just now starting really to reach built-in sort of. The 2020 LTS actually does not have deferred rendering. It does not have point light shadows. It does not have. I think it doesn't have decals. Um, doesn't have decals. It doesn't have light layers. I believe there's a lot of things it doesn't have. No, obviously it doesn't have volumetric lighting or volumetric stuff in general, and yeah. But still, it's a very very powerful underpipeline. Still, if your game is if you don't need the volumetric look, or if you are creating something heavy or something big and you need that performance, then URP is not a bad choice. It really isn't. If you're doing an open world and maybe you have experience with URP but not in HDRP, and you really don't want to invest that time to learning it and finding the equivalent assets and all that, you can just use URP. It's acceptable, and it's the overhead is much smaller, and it still has nice features, nonetheless. Also, if you're doing mobile or low spec games, URP is your go-to for sure. VR also. VR is very possible in HDRP, but it's gonna be hard hitting the performance metrics that VR requires. But if you're more interested in high fidelity stuff, high definition graphics, high quality stuff in general, volumetric stuff, volumetric clouds, beautiful looks, or unique maybe looks, then HDRP is your go-to without using any assets. And this is a big one. You really don't need any assets for volumetric lighting, for volumetric clouds, for procedural sky, a bunch of stuff. Really, it's pretty good, and if the team is really making great progress the last good bit. You can actually check their progress on GitHub, the Unity graphics repository. It's pretty good. In 2021.2 from memory, so I'm gonna miss a lot of things, but they're gonna have the new dynamic resolution filters that I talked about coming, dynamic resolution improvements in general. What else? Volumetric clouds are gonna be a thing in that version. It's gonna be great. And also the guy working on volumetric clouds have been making major improvements based on user feedback and his own improvements, and it's been great. There's also actually an alternative also to volumetric clouds if you're interested and you don't want to use the default volumetric clouds that come with Unity HDRP, and that is Expanse. It's called Expanse. It's an asset for Unity. It's a volumetric cloud and atmospheres asset, and it is great. The assets there, the clouds and the atmospheres are extremely beautiful. It's really advanced, and the guy working on it really knows his stuff. You can tell. And it's based on a paper. I believe it's based on Horizon Zero. I think it's called Horizon Zero Dawn. The volumetric clouds of that game really knocked it off the park, and it's based on that stuff and a bunch of other stuff. It's really good, really really good, and it only works in HDRP. And it works well with HDRP. So you have an option between the default stuff and the Expanse. Because the volumetric clouds are new, so there will be improvements most likely in the 2022 version in the future probably, but that's not coming anytime soon. Let alone the LTS of that version. What else is coming in 2021.2? Let me see. Man, I do not have a great memory. I believe a bunch of ray tracing, denoising improvements, some path tracing, some stuff that was not supported is now supported for path tracing, basically. You know what? I can actually search that stuff. If I go to Unity roadmap HDRP, might as well search it for you since I've taken so long. This is more like a podcast than a goddamn tutorial. Like I said, it's just a discussion and a deep look into the sample. Anyways, so this is a great site, by the way. It's the product board or the roadmap for rendering and visual effects for Unity. There's actually also other stuff like the world building and a bunch of other roadmap stuff that is not rendering. But for now, we're just gonna focus on this. So this is 2020 LTS. We're just gonna ignore that. This is the 2021 beta. Not everything is here, but the most major stuff most likely is. So NVIDIA DLSS, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, it's not available right now. It's gonna be available in the 2021. Terrain, you can now place grass on terrain. That should have been there ages ago. I'm not sure why it took so long, but yeah. Volumetric clouds, speed tree, which was just acquired by Unity, so that should see some major improvements in the future. Hopefully. Lens flare, tessellation, shader graph, cloud layer. That's great too, actually. It's a great alternative. It's very nice. Yeah, it's really good. Very beautiful. Local volumetric fog for my blending improvements. I think it's called, yeah. Enlighten real-time global illumination is thankfully coming back to HDRP. It really should have never removed it in the first place, but hey. Cinematic lighting tool. This is actually great. Excuse me. Yeah, this is really great. Cinematic lighting, it's gonna be awesome. I've seen some people testing it. It is really, really beautiful. Decal improvements or UX improvements. That's always welcome. Decal normal blending. You can see the before, after. It's amazing. It's great. A bunch of stuff. Like I said, path tracing of support of fabric shaders. I mean, I know you guys can read, but I might as well, right? Path tracing support of volumetric scattering. More or the max is increased for path tracing samples. This stuff. Like I said, the dynamic resolution improvements and fixes. Bunch of stuff. By the way, I'm actually not positive the temporal upsampling is going to make it for 2020 1.2, but I think it will. It's not guaranteed, but I think it will. This stuff, I actually tested this. It works, obviously, but don't expect any major crazy performance improvements, but the improvement is there. It's very nice, and the biggest bottleneck for Unity HDRP is by far the CPU main thread, so that is very, very welcome. Especially with dynamic resolution now, you can really give yourself a lot of leeway when it comes to the GPU. Unfortunately, there is no dynamic resolution for the CPU, so yeah, they need to make major improvement to that stuff. CPU, AMD super resolution. That is going to be awesome. I actually did not test this because it's not in the beta. I have to download the GitHub, and I'm not going to do that yet. So when I test it, I'll probably make a video about it. A hair and fur shader. That is very nice. Yeah, HDRP already offers a hair shader, but this is, I guess, a new one. Alright, this stuff is planned. Service shaders. Actually, I tried DirectX 12, and it does have. Well, I actually did not try it in beta. I tried it in the 2020 LTS, and the performance is slightly slower, but I think there will be improvements. It's also required for the ray tracing stuff.